So looking at yesterday, we had the 5-day reclamation, which brought us all the way up to the 20-day MA. In which this case we did start to range, and you see the inverse cup close here with that handle, which then gave you your next trade. But I really want you to understand the precision here, right? So anytime you get the precision, there's a trade, right? Like there's a deeper structure here for the upside. You protect by the resistance, right? Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work, right? But you could take a trade there. You could actually also take a trade within here. And both times they fail to break above and reclaim the 5-day MA as support, right? Um, so instead, you see Magenta's break, which you could take a starter if you see the precision in time, which does close the inverse cup, right? But the better trade overall would be the handle, right? There's more confirmation. You see the yellow break, and you get the precision to appear once more. So not too bad of a trade. Able to guide this all the way down. You could even reload in areas like this. Um, Another one here, right? A bunch of areas that you definitely could be reloading in if taking structures like that. All right, and from here, you look for selling continuation all the way down after that inverse cup and handle. All right, you get a very nice yellow BNR here, right? Beautifully making lower highs within a lower low, turning the yellow into resistance here. Gives you one beautiful trade all the way down to the 5-day MA, right? And then maybe one end of day after a lack of selling continuation to the downside. Um, Magenta becoming support here. It's possible. I wouldn't recommend it as your target was here and you start to uh, near end of day. If it normally gets contained, it doesn't always just go straight up. So you don't expect that to happen. Um, but in this case, it did. So it could be worth the gamble to VWAP here where it went. But not very much an enticing trade, that's for sure. So yeah, possible nonetheless though. Um, Looking at the daily chart, 5-day MA below the 20-day MA. We're in a downtrend. We've already retested the bottom Bollinger Band. Normally what you want to see now is this bottom Bollinger Band trending down with the 5-day MA. As long as the 20-day MA stays above, right, this is going to stay in a downtrend. So we will see if the buyers show up. The buyers will want to keep price up to then reconverge the 5 and 20-day MA. But as of now, you see the sellers are holding price in the pre-market below. So as long as the price continues to head down, it's still in a downtrend. That's something you need to keep in mind, and I'll show you more on the 30-minute here. Um, Very important to realize this magenta, right? We rejected beautifully off of it. We're still within the pink here, so do keep that in mind. I really want you to watch down here though, right? You'll see that I listed this structure here, right? You'll see 5-day MA become resistance within a structure, hopefully. Um, Around here, right? You'd see this playing out. So do watch for that, right? I'm hoping we do get this. If there's any downside, you want to make sure that magenta becomes resistance. You want to see the sellers being more volatile here. Otherwise, if we do grind down in this, I want you to be very, very careful. The buyers reclaiming the range, right? And how would you see that? You'd see that with the 5-day MA becoming support firstly, and then 20-day MA reclamation, right? So don't count it out. It's very possible, but allow the market to show you where it wants to go, right? You're not anticipating, you're reacting. That's a big difference in day trading. You're a reactor, not a predictor, right? So firstly, let's see buying continuation here. If we get the buying continuation, BNR of the 20-day MA is safest, right? That will be the best trade to take here. Otherwise, I would prefer it could go a little bit deeper off this blue if it wants to push back out like this would also be ideal. So just watch for it. We'll see what happens. Otherwise, if everything is unclear, wait for cups to close. Can never go wrong with that. Okay, we got a small crowd today. That's completely fine. Right? If you guys do have some questions, if the crowd is smaller, I could probably answer questions a little bit easier. So just ask in the response chat if you guys do have some questions. I do want you guys to keep in mind that today could be fairly choppy. If you read what I was writing through, if we get trapped in a downtrend early, but we don't break through the through that magenta algo, I'm quite worried of a grind down um, within the magenta, and that could, you know, that's not ideal. If the selling's very controlled, just be very wary of a chop. All right, so it'll be very important to adjust your mind to understanding that we need a larger range. You want a decent imbalance, right? If your bottom range to your upper range isn't enough profits, you wait for expansion, right? This would be a lot better, right? If you could enter a trade within these areas. I drew that out on the 1 minute to try to understand how structure works, right? The big thing of it is you'll probably see the structure. The larger the structure, the better, right? The more of an imbalance, the larger the chance that there will be a breakout. That's what you need to train your mind to see and understand, right? Think of it like a rubber band. If you get a rubber band and you charge it all the way back, it's gonna go real far. Same thing, right? The larger the head, the imbalance, the more of the better of a chance you have for it to go farther. That's as simple as that. Okay, so keep an eye on that 30-minute. Very important to see what's going on. I'm going to add a orange algo, selling algo, just so we can see if there's an attempt for more downside off of this pink becoming resistance on the 30-minute, right? But 5-day MA right below. Very, very simply, wait for the break and retrace of 5-day MA as resistance. All right, this will be the best structure to wait for if there's any downside, right? And ideally, the selling would be within green. Geoman, uh, early on trades depends. It's very scenario based, but yeah, I could show you. Just understand that I do normally have anywhere between 6 to 8 ticks of a stop loss. So what that means is if I have a contract that's worth $600, right? $6 on just its face value. Um, no matter what, I'll never lose more than 60 to 80 bucks per contract, right? So a lot of that is understanding that my entry needs to be around that level, right? So I'm not going to take a structure that has 12 ticks of stop. I'll take a structure that I can get a stop within 6 to 8 ticks or less, right? A lot of momentum trades, I have a lot of them are 3 to 4 ticks, right? Very, very tight stop losses. Why do I do that? Because I build enough confirmation to understand, okay, if my green precision is holding and I have enough confirmation, like 5-day MA would be coming resistance here, okay, I have a stop loss that I can manually adjust right above the 5-day MA with 3 to 4 ticks of stop, and as long as the 5-day MA holds resistance, I am good to go, right? So it's about an understanding more so momentum trading than anything else in breakouts. You need the strongest precision normally to do that. Sometimes the second strongest can do the job, but I'll talk more about that in uh, separate workshop videos. I will train you guys on how to get very, very tight stop losses. Yeah, but yeah, for sure. Okay, so you want to see 5-day MA becoming resistance here. Keep an eye on the Qs as well. Qs is at its 5-day MA. Watch that 30-minute. Set an alert at the orange algo if you have not as well. That'll be important on the 30-minute. ES cloud has flipped to red, and the 5-minute cloud is red, right? So sellers are here. I want you to keep that in mind. That is important. Try to follow along with the structure, right? You had this range here, which formed a lower low, and now you have a new low. Pretty volatile candle. There is a buyer precision here, which I will map out. Keep an eye on the Qs, right? I want you to look at this candle, right? There's a lot of support that came in here off that precision. Very thin structure. Be very careful here, right? It's going to be safest to wait for a bit of a larger imbalance or break and retrace, right? Just don't forget how it works. There's a support, a low that needs to break and form as a lower high, right? As long as you see a lower high like this, that trade will be very nice. Yep. So just keep in mind what's going on, right? Don't forget your your first understanding of what's going on right now is likely to be a grind down. Okay, that's the first understanding of what's going to happen if the 5-day MA becomes resistance. Right now there will be a trade to the downside if 5-day MA becomes resistance. But I want you to be very, very wary of this teal, right? If we just grind down within this teal all the way down, be very careful of that. Yep, you cannot short before 5-day becomes resistance. You can simply see that, right? Again, try to read structure. It's too thin here. We also had seen that. You know that this needs to break and retrace, right? Not right here. Not take a trade right here. Now you see a buyer's precision attempting to break out a teal. See how they're pushing above this high here? This becomes very important for you to realize if you want to take the next trade. But you need structure, right? Where's the resistance at? Your target would be towards the orange, right? But I do want you to see that there is a buyer precision appearing here. Not so easy, right? Now you have more confirmation. If you did take any long here, right, you have a buyer precision on a break a teal, you'd have to protect, right, ASAP. That's a very nice candle to get. But instead, now you have more confirmation to just wait, right? No shorting until the 5-day MA becomes resistance involved with the orange algo here. You can see there's liquidity here, but I'm telling you, if you do not wait for the 5-day MA to become resistance, there isn't enough imbalance. It's an engulfing candle, you gotta be worried, right? Normally on engulfing candles, there isn't a trade to be taking if they're this large. Engulfing to the fact that they just engulfed everything, right, to the next level, right? So your confirmation would be this candle and it's already at the next level or fairly close, which would just be the 5-day MA support, right? So if you were to take a trade understanding, okay, you have your confirmation, you literally have to protect by this next level. It wouldn't make sense, right? There's just too much risk involved. So you just wait. Just imagine all the retail getting trapped, right? Keep an eye on the Qs. The Qs are forming support off the 5-day MA currently as well, right? So what is your safest bet? Break and retrace, all right? Just don't forget this. It'll be a lot simpler for you to just wait for this. Any long, still it will be safer for the buyers to reappear, reestablish support, and break out. That would be with this teal. And this level here, right? So you'd either take a trade within this area, and I'll color this circle. I'll just do blue so we have a little bit of clarity, or this area here, and possibly this area. Right? It'll get easier if you would allow it to be easier, right? Don't don't force it. There is a weaker buying algorithm within, um, but it's still not very ideal to trade this. So just be very careful, right? You can see the buyers are within control here. They have a buyer precision, right? But again, try to understand how you would target. You can technically have very, very low risk in entry like this as long as you place your stop in the right spots. But just try to understand that the breakout needs to happen here. Otherwise, if the teal is breaking out at resistance, you again wait for the retrace, right? Otherwise, you need to be getting filled on the higher low that forms, right? As your risk reward would be risk to there, reward to here, right? So that will also save you from taking trades that are just not high quality, right? Just try to understand that if the teal's ever breaking at resistance, right, without it flipping as support, you should probably wait for the next retracement. Simply, that's just how it is, right? If you are taking the trade, which it is possible, right? You would take it at the higher low forming within precision. You would then gauge your risk to reward if you entered on any of the support wicks here. Want to be protected by the high here, or be able to guide with the blue, right? So you'd be protecting on this green candle, and then once more at the orange candle, right? So it's possible always. Just sometimes it's not as high quality and as easy to see. Right. So that's okay if you didn't take that trade. I think, I mean, it'd be awesome if we get a retrace up here, right? Why? You're breaking out of the bearish control, and the buyers would likely appear in a stronger buying algorithm. So it's possible, right? I want you to look at the 30-minute, right? Nice support wick near that um, that orange algo. Okay, so looking at the 5-minute chart, you will see that cloud is starting to flip green here. Um, that's important to realize. I've talked about this in a video before, so you guys should understand it a little bit more now. All right. I want you to be able to watch for, if you're trying to use the cloud, what you want to see now is the buyers keeping the range up, retracing, and bouncing off that cloud here. All right. Remember, currently it's still contained within that orange. That's not ideal if you're looking long. Right now, if you're trying to read the structure again or trying to get filled on a momentum trade, you need to understand what you're targeting. It's not high quality. The more high quality one is when the bearish control has been breached. And there is a target right above, which is the gap, yesterday's close. Buyers are attempting, right? You see the precision there. Okay, so far we see the orange resistance here. The buyers are attempting to flip it as support. As long as it stays within this blue here, it will flip as support, right? But it needs to stay within the blue. So watch to see if the buyers will show up. Right? Buyers aren't showing up. That means you don't want to take any long until this, right? So allow them to appear first. The sellers appear, break blue, we're contained within the orange. All right, what would that tell you? Doesn't technically mean that it's going to dump, right? You just now have a high that's forming. Right, so if you are taking a Zomi there, gotta get protected. It's not a bad Zomi. It's very low risk right here. You'd place your stop right here, right up at the teal, right? Very, very easy trade. Well, maybe not easy if you don't understand how it works, right? But easy if you do. Right, protected by the first support level here. Right, remember what's going on not only with the daily, but on the 30-minute as well here. Right, we have some selling continuation from the 20-day MA. Buyers attempted off the 5-day MA, but you see they were contained within the orange. Right, so this is a Zomi technically on the 1-minute. Right, but this plays within the context of the daily trend. My hopes is that I can guide this trade all the way down to the orange algo, right? Can it still do this? Yes, right? So be wary of that. Otherwise, can you see the possibility? Well, the liquidities here, right? Can you see the possibility? But you need to wait for orange, right? Cut right as the blue breaks, no reason to hold. Not a bad Zomi at all, right? In zones of mutual interest, all you're looking for is to protect from here, from entering here with a stop loss here, right? I don't need to hold it for much, right? So the stop loss is at the break of teal. So Geoman, what I would do every single time on trades like this is try to understand the context of what's going on, right? You see the containment, you see the blue precision breaking. This isn't the buyer showing up. The buyers now need to retrace above this. This is sellers taking over. So I take puts there, place the teal, understand that the next stop, the next candle, my stop can be slightly above the entry point of the last candle, the high of the last candle. Good to go, right? I don't want to be involved if it's teal selling. This isn't deep enough for a proper inverted head and shoulder structure either, not a good buying continuation structure. So now you can understand how to not, when to not trade, right? So you got sellers within control with the teal, or buyers, sorry. Blue precision not activating here. And not much of a range to get involved to go long, right? If I want to go long, I want to see this become support, right? How is that going to happen? Like that. So I'm okay with waiting for this. A big part of trading is a lot of you will start to see trades, right? You'll know that the buyers are showing up, but forget that you need to wait for a better imbalance to take a trade. So at this point, now you see the buyers are appearing, right? And it's with green, right? And they are breaking out of this resistance very rapidly. Remember, if you've been here long enough, if it's in the strongest precision, it just needs to retrace off of the prior bearish control or bullish control within 1 to 2 candles. Right? It doesn't necessarily always happen that way, but if you're looking for a trade like this, right, you understand what you're watching for then. We've now broken out of that resistance. Buyers have reappeared, pushing out of the orange containment. Now you watch to see, are the buyers going to hold with the green precision with the orange support? If it's not in the green precision, it could also be in this blue. Not ideal, right? Contained. Again, wait for this orange to become support. If it's not support, it's contained. I was ready to get in if the buyers showed up right here. But I know not to get involved because none of the precisions are activating, breaking the containment. Now I get really worried, right? Sellers already had attempted and lacked some continuation. Now the buyers are showing up. They still technically have the ball here, but you have to be very worried because of the fact that they couldn't push above that orange. So this is an area called no trade zone, right? Just understand now, until we get around this level within this orange, that there's no trade, right? Now, ideally, we would get a larger structure here, right? This would be a bit more ideal, something like this. So just wait for it. I'd rather not take a small imbalance off the 5-day MA, but if there is a better imbalance where I can protect before the 5-day MA on that right shoulder, a lot safer, right? So wait for the orange band, head and shoulder. That's all you got to do now. If you're scalping, your first protect target is right there. So if you took any trades, which don't get me wrong, it is possible when you know the precision isn't buying, you could start looking to scalp. I'm not telling you it's a great trade, but you could take the trade around this area, get protected, and have a stop loss around this area to protect by this area, right? Now, again, not going to say it's the most ideal, but that's how I would do it if I was entering here. Right, and I'm more so showing you so that, because Geoman asked a question on where you play stop losses, I want you to get really good at knowing where to play stop losses. But yeah, at this point, right, you get worried about this chop that could start to occur here. Forcing trades now without much sign of anything is just, it's not ideal. I'm going to tell you that now. It's just so much better to wait. Wait for that 5-day MA retest, all right, or the orange bands, build a head and shoulder, you'll do so much better, right? If you're attempting to short this lower high here, I would be very careful. There's not much confirmation yet, right? It's possible, don't get me wrong. You could see the attempt of this flipping, right? But just know that there's no confirmation that this is headed down quite yet. They haven't truthfully broken through all the supports. They're still within this range, right? So you have to remember that. So this could be a trap until the sellers attempt down here. You have to be very careful, right? Otherwise, the larger the structure, the better, right? So if I were trading this, I see this resistant wick, I'd want to get the entry as soon as I saw that resistant wick coming in, protect as soon as I possibly can, and now place my stop right above this candle here, right? I would not want to lose any money. You would just start guiding with the precision. I could place the green here, but it's not selling in green. It's selling in the blue. But this one, not as worth it to me. Not as worth the scalp, since I know that the range here is too tight. I would rather just wait for the orange. There is a magenta here. If we do break out of the orange here, right, this will likely be the target of an inverse cup and handle. Even better, if it wants to break all the way through, retrace this as resistance. All right, so a lot of you will find more consistency in not trading this. I feel like a lot of people, even though you understand that there's a precision orange break and this lower high that attempted to form, you don't understand that it's within the middle of the range, right? So if you lack to understand that it's not actually in a continuation of any sorts yet, you have to be very, very careful, right? You have less confirmation and more likely a trap. This would come better off if we had formed more liquidity here, and magenta could be involved forming a head and shoulder. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible because there's obviously a good chance it could sell as long as it stays within this precision, right? But you need to understand the difference, right? When we form another structure below, especially if it's already closed in inverse cup, especially if it happens like this, right? I'm going to trust taking the trade here or here a lot more because it's already in a continuation, right? Anything within here, technically the buyers can show up, right? So I want you to try to see that. If the precision fails here, then that's also how you can see zomies, right? If you understand where the buyers have control to the minimal point, right? As long as 5-day MA stays support. Do you see how this could also happen? All right, if it wants to happen like this with the magenta as support, with 5-day MA as support, right? So you got to build yourself to be a bit more cautious and waiting for more confirmation. Great. So if you took the puts there, right, you saw the lower high forming. Okay, great, right? You could have taken the trade here, and honestly, in any of these areas, right? I think 1007, not too bad. 1010, possible. Um, right? Orange resistance, blue precision, but it's still smack dab middle of the range. And you know that orange is right below, so you'd have to protect there, right? It's penny perfect. You understand where your entry is, you understand where you have to protect, and you understand where your stop loss is, right? Now you continue to guide with the blue once protected, and if the blue breaks, you likely exit the trade here. Try to start looking as well, not just for the bearish side, but understanding that the buyers could still have control here, and how if this is a deep enough inverted head and shoulder for you to go long. I would like it to be a little deeper, personally, right? Um, I want to see this support get breached, the buyers reclaim it, and push out like this. That's what I want to see. So you can use that. The better you get at it, the better you'll be able to gauge when the precision should appear. Now, it's an anticipation, but you're still waiting to see if it appears. You don't just take it without seeing it, obviously, right? But you'll be able to understand and gauge the market a little bit better. So with that being said, I'd rather wait for the teal and magenta with 5-day MA becoming support, buyers appearing it before I look to Zomi long, right? That's what I would want. I'd want to Zomi long if I know that the sellers are lacking selling continuation below. If not, I'm okay with waiting for break and retraces on thinner structure, or if I can gauge the buyer precision before it retests resistances for a proper risk to reward ratio, right? So here, orange is holding, blue precision is breaking. There could be a possibility that the blue buying precision or green buying precision appears. I don't see it quite yet. I understand where the structure is, right? I understand that this was the liquidity level. So ideally, I would see the buyers appear reclaiming this before it gets to resistance levels, right? So I'd more so like to see the buyers break and retrace the teal here, as long as it stays within a buying precision, to go up, right? So now you see buyers are appearing. Great. Now there's a few ways you can enter this, right? As soon as I place down a precision, as soon as it gets to the support level of that precision, you have to you take it, get your entry, and guide with the precision up to the next resistance level. That's what you would do. Or you wait for the retracement. It's as simple as that. And or you could wait for the high to be retested, buyers to come back in, and flip this level as support. So many different ways to enter, right? Any trade you take before this high here is retested, you must protect before it retests the high, right? So if you go long here, you have to be protected by here, no matter what, right? That's just how it is. If you don't, you fail to protect, you get greedy, you will lose more. And you've already heard me say that this isn't a kind of structure that I think is proper. I would have rather preferred a deeper head, right? Try to remember how springs work. This isn't that deep of a spring, right? So if you fail to protect before the high and you know it's not a deep imbalance, why? Right? Don't take trades that aren't high quality if you don't want to protect before you need to, right? And even when you take high quality trades, you should be protected, right? But at least you have more risk or reward to your risk ratio, right? Higher quality, right? If I get involved in a trade down here, I have to protect by here is a lot more than if I get involved within this area to protect by this area and then to then again protect by this area. Right. So buyers aren't out of the mix yet, right? They still technically need to break and now retrace as support with the precision out of teal to get to the next level. Otherwise, if sellers come back in like they're attempting to, there's a possible trade as long as the precision appears, flipping this as resistance. Do you see that? Now you would again have to protect by the next liquidity level, right? So you have to gauge your RR once more. It's best to wait for the break and retrace of orange, right? Look at its support. There's not much of a target if you take the breakout, right? If you take anything beforehand, you need to have confirmation beforehand taking trades at the resistance levels, right? So you need again to wait. That's what I'm getting at. It's another engulfing candle. It's not easy to tell where your risk to reward ratio or get a good risk to reward ratio within, right? You understand that it could be teal selling. I'm actually going to move the teal selling to here now, right? You see that it held support, was contained within that area, so that is where the teal support is. Right, we're just at the VWAP, guys. It's not much going on yet. All VWAP is, truthfully, is an area of safety in the middle of the range at this point, right? With the POC, which is the point of control, which is where the most orders are placed, which basically is also going to work like a wall, right? So this is where orders want to come in and orders don't want to go anywhere. It's a place of safety, right? A place of balance in the market. When it's within this area, that's when you need to realize, okay, the deeper the structure, the better, right? So you can wait for the next structure. You can always wait for the retrace. At this point, there is a pink algo. Let me get that down. Okay. Now we have the pink algo. You have the magenta. You're prepared for everything, right, with your 30-minute preparation. You know not to trade this. You can be safe and wait for the next objective to be met. Anything on the in-between, not attempting to break out of the pink or magenta, is most likely a trap, right? You need to understand that. So the deeper the structure in between, the better, right? So if you're waiting for some sort of nested structure here, the deeper the structure, the better. You can also now clearly see the new wedge. Just be patient, right? At this point, you understand where the support is, where the resistance is here. You can just wait, right? Nothing in between here. Let me draw an X, right? You could wait for that. If the buyers do show up, this is how it will form, right? You'd wait for that. Just prepare ahead. Know not to take a trade here. That's all you got to do. If you're not good enough to fully understand a larger structure that could come to take this, as long as you understand that you don't trade here, you'll be okay. If you do understand how to take those or wait for those larger structures and visualize them, well done. That's what I hope I can get you to eventually. Right. So at this point, it'll be safest to wait for this, right? If you want to go short. Sellers would appear here, here, and eventually here, right? You'd want to see that green precision activating. Any long, retest that high, form a clear continuation structure, and break out, right? You'd want to see pink rebuild liquidity, right? With likely the blue precision here, again here, and again here. Okay, so it's just chopping around. There's not really much to do here. You can set your alerts at 686. Um, what is that? That's just a high, right? 686.06 around there. And you could do magenta algo. There'll be structures around those times, right? Even with the first cell here, unless it's in the green precision doing this, right? Just wait. Here, I'll map this out here so you can see any early trade. Now, I'm not going to tell you to take anything here, right? It's just better to wait normally, right? So wait for the next setup. Otherwise, the earliest is this. That is the earliest, right? It's the same thing here, right? If you were waiting for that trade. But now you understand where the high and low of this range is, and that's what you play off of. You don't see the breakout here yet, so it doesn't mean it's going to go down. There's also not that clear of a structure. So just also keep that in mind. And then your larger range is here to here, right? Right. So it's okay to wait. Okay, so I'll mark out the precision so you can see this. Oops. Right, just remember where we're at. Pink could be containing price below. We're going to draw this out further. Blue precision is currently selling. They are pushing through this support. Right. It's not in the strongest selling precision. That's okay though. Right, so at this point you want to just, if you're going to take anything, right, you need to see what's going on, wait for a proper retracement with the precision in magenta, or just wait for the 5-day MA to become resistance. Remember where possible Zomi is at that I was talking about, right? So just don't be foolish, understand where you're at in the range. Anything you take, especially puts here, if it's within the smack dab middle of the range still, attempting to break down, don't get me wrong, you scale down, right? You wait for a proper entry and you scale down. Now, watch, because they pushed right out of that magenta, watch the teal. Buyers are appearing. Buyers showing up, breaking out of the teal, blue precision, green precision actually also attempting here, right? Okay, very nice. right? Were you waiting for that buyer to appear? Because I was. Not too hard to see. Just get protected. See if this has continuation. We're not out of the blue yet, right? We still gotta wait to see if we can push out of the pink, right? It's right at the resistance level, so I'm protected here. Now I wait to see if there's continuation. Just guide with the green. Okay, make sure if you are in, you can guide with the blue. I'm guiding my last runner with blue here, so as long as the blue holds, I'll be good to go. Um, yeah, not too hard to see though, right? Um, Simply, you saw the buyers reappearing, pushing right above that magenta. That was my entry. Once I saw that happening, I could see the buyers were starting to appear here, right? You have the pink support right below, right? 5 DMA right below. It's a much better spring here, right? Okay, so not a bad trade. What at all there, right? You saw this is what I was talking about, right? I watched the blue precision break. I saw the buyers appearing. A bit of a deeper head here. It's a bit better. We didn't get a full-on retest of that magenta, which would have been really nice, but once I saw the buyer appear pushing above this magenta, I kind of knew what was going on here. So I just take the trade, right, with a very tight stop, guided right below the magenta. If magenta would have gone back under, I would have stopped out fairly quickly. And then once it is pushed up, I get protected by here. And now I have a stop guided right around here, right, right below this level. I can allow this trade to run. Other than that though, I mean, fairly simple, right? Not too hard to see today. Not an easy day to trade, I'd say, for if you over traded this area, but it is easy if you waited for what? Precision, right? Waited for a deeper imbalance, wait for the precision. How important is that, right? You had volatility within this area, right? So the orange was becoming resistance. You have an easy up, right? I knew where the next target would be. I protect by that target, and then for the rest of this time, there was just nothing but a chop, right? The sellers attempted, right? But remember what I said about continuation. In the middle, there's not much confirmation here, right? Buyers were still technically in control as long as they stayed above the 5-day MA. You see the sellers attempt, right? And then they push right up back above that magenta, right? This was then a trap, a bear trap for the buyers to get filled, reclaiming this level with magenta as support. Buyer precision appearing, I take the long, right? And now we have the move to the upside. Not out of the clear yet, right? Hasn't breached the high a day, but it's a good attempt. So make sure if you're protected, guide with the blue. If you're still within, if you took this retracement, you gotta be guiding with the blue. And if this breaks, it is what it is. What I do is I guide it with the next candle's low. So if this next candle's low gets taken out, I get stopped out. Especially if it's right off of that, right? Yeah. So it's tested it. That does stop me out there. That's okay. If it goes up now, I just wait for the next structure. But that's what I do, right? That's how I trade. I don't want to stay in a trade for absurdly a long time if the volatility isn't there, right? And that's completely fine. Now I just wait. We will place a magenta here so we can see that. Right, now I want you to see if there's any true long, right? Your target, if this continues up with any buying algorithm, you got to target this magenta, right? But now I want you to pay attention to a larger structure that could start to form, okay? Currently, we're hovering above the 5-day MA, okay? You've got the 20-day MA here. If we get trapped at the 20-day MA and the buyers lack continuation, right? And there's a magenta here. There could be a really, really nice move if they want to sell later today, right? There's a lot of liquidity here, right? So just keep that in mind. Set your alerts, right? If that's what's got to happen today, right? And why is that even a factor today? We're in a downtrend, right? 20-day MA would be the wall of resistance above, right? 5-day MA is the support. This could just be all liquidity building, okay? So come back later today, see if there's a possible trade. All right, I'm gonna wrap up now. I would rather wait. I don't see the volatility. I don't care unless there's volatility, right? You'll learn that about me. You should learn to do the same. If there isn't volatility, then there's just no trade for you. Okay? All right, everybody. I'm gonna get out of here. Take care.